Hey, what's going on, folks? It's Mike here, and welcome back to the Deprogramming Language series. In this lesson, I want to just have a little bit of fun with some metaprogramming in the unit testing. Now, ultimately, I want to add a little bit more power to our unit testing framework, or show you how you can build on top of it to build something interesting. So with that said, let's go ahead and look at the Deprogramming Language website here. And what I'm going to go ahead and do here is just go to the documentation. Let's go to the language reference here. And let's go ahead and take a look for traits here, which is down towards the bottom. And basically what I want to do is take a look at unit tests. And if I just start searching this, you'll see there's this cool get unit test trait here that we can take a look at here. And this actually has a pretty full example for us. And what the get unit test trait does is it takes one argument, a symbol of an aggregate, struct, class, module, and the result is a symbol sequence of all the unit tests functions of that aggregate. So for instance, if we have a struct, we can gather all the unit tests from it, a class, or a module. Now, if we have a module, we might need to do a little bit more work, meaning we might need to look at the module and then get all of the classes and then get all the unit tests from those classes and so on. So this isn't a complete example, but it'll give you the tools if you wanted to build a more powerful framework. Now, this caveat said, before we go ahead and dive in here, if you just want a built-in testing framework, you can search Dlang and the Dub repository here. And I think if we search for, let's see here, it's got some popular categories here. Let's look at the packages here. I'm going to go ahead and just look for like testing or test here. Unit-threaded is probably one of the more popular ones. So that has an advanced multi-threaded unit testing framework with minimal to no boilerplate. So I'd recommend using something like that or experimenting with any of the other different frameworks here. You can see when they've been updated and choose your favorite. But with that said, again, let's have a little bit of fun here because again, you're following along with the series, you know this. So I'm just going to go ahead and just copy and paste the code here, and we'll kind of walk through what it is and just play around with it a little bit here. Now, again, the note here is that we do need to use the -unit test flag as usual here, but we're going to sort of override or bypass that flag. So let's go ahead here and paste in that sample. And let's go ahead and have a little look at what it's doing here. And basically what it's doing is we have this module. It's called foo. We're going to bring in the runtime here, which is going to be important because that's going to control the sort of unit test execution here. And in the sample code, they've got a class for foo, which has a unit test embedded within it. And then we've got a foo unit test here. And this has a attribute on it. Okay, we haven't talked about user-defined attributes or UDAs too much yet in the series, but again, they're a really powerful part of metaprogramming. We have this nice little trick for giving us a tuple type here that we can use as a template. The shared static this is basically something that will run exactly one time for this module. And what it does here is, as noted in the comment, is it overrides the default unit test runner to do nothing. Okay, after that, the main will just be called here. Okay, so we're still doing the -unit test thing to run the unit tests, but we want to manually call them so we have control. And basically what our main function is going to do is it's going to print out this start main. We're going to get all the unit tests for the module foo. Okay, so what's that going to include here? That's just going to include this unit test here. Okay, because again, we need to do a little bit more work, meaning what we need to do is get all of the structs and the classes and then dig into those to get the unit test inside here. But this will at least give us the outside level ones, and then we could do something interesting with it. I'm going to go ahead and just make a duplicate of this. Let's just go ahead and call it foo2, just so we have more to work with. It makes it a little bit more interesting. So there's two, unit tests that are going to be called here. So that's the idea with this line here. And again, we're doing this at compile time because again, anytime you see __ something, that usually means compile time. This is traits. We're getting all the unit tests for this module here. Okay, all the ones that are directly exposed. Let's go ahead and scroll down. Now, and then we can get the attributes of the tests that we found. So in this case, we just have test 0 here. Let's go ahead and we'll change that around here. We'll try to get all those tests here. We'll play around with this. In fact, I'm going to get rid of these assertions because we should have 2 unit tests. And let's just go ahead and run this here. So I'll use rdmd. I need to use unit test here. And this is our main file here. And you'll see that this is getting us for foo. Well, it's printing out start main. Again, just to make apparent that we've disabled the unit test runner here. In fact, I could just delete the start main here because it's a little bit distracting. And anyways, we have foo.unittest here. Okay. And then we have foo2unittest, which are both our tests that we get here in the foo module. And then from the foo class, we have one unit test here. Okay. Now this is a little bit ambiguous here with how it's written out here. So let me go ahead and just make this a little bit more clear for you. So I'm just going to fold these for 1 second here. Oops. Let's go ahead and try that again here. 1 second here. Let's go ahead and fold these. There we go. And let me give this a better name here. Foo class here. Okay. Foo class. Just because you want to pay attention to the capitalization. Okay. So let's go ahead and run this again. Oops. Of course, if I make a spelling mistake here, D gives me a little bit of a help here, which is nice. Just so you can see that we have that foo class that's executing here. I'm going to go ahead and just comment this one out for now. Or actually, let's just get rid of it here. Because this one is only getting unit tests from the foo class scope. Okay. And again, that's this guy here. So we don't really care about that. So let's just comment that out for now so we can ignore it. And let's do something just a little bit more interesting here. Because again, a common complaint with the D framework here, let's go ahead and open this up, is, that this is comically underpowered, as we would say here, meaning that these unit tests here are, we don't know which one's executing and so on, but we do have these attributes here, which tells us something interesting. Foo, foo2, we could name these, right, effectively here with this user-defined attribute here. So let's go ahead and for each of our tests here, let's just go ahead and loop through. Let's give an index here. And again, I just want to give a little demonstration of how we can add some more power if you wanted to build your own unit test framework here. So let's just do IDX, and I don't know, put like a number here, a space. And let's go ahead and put the, let's go ahead and play with this tuple here and see if we can get the name here. So for our attributes, let's see what happens if we pass in IDX here. Is it going to crash? Let's say, okay, array index 1 is outside array 0 to 1. Okay. Let's just put in attribute 0 here. Because what's this doing? Well, this is getting the attributes for our tests here. Each of our tests are supposed to have at least one annotation. Okay. So let's go ahead and run this now. And now we can see here, and again, let's make it just a little bit more clear. Let's put a little right line here. One more time here, that we got the named test foo. Okay, so I'm going to scroll up here. And let's go ahead and hide some of the stuff that doesn't matter right now. And I have my foo unit test. That's the 0th one here. I have foo2. That's the first one here. And then you can see that we're manually calling those tests here. That is the test function here, which writes out foo.unittest down here. And this one writes out foo2unittest here. Okay, so now if one of your unit tests fails or breaks or something, let's go ahead and put a assert false here. Let's go ahead and put a assert true. Let's see what happens in our unit test runner here. Oops, gotta change this to a semicolon. There we go. Now we're getting our crash here, okay, our unit test failure. Let's go ahead and make this one false, this one true. Let's go ahead and see what happens. And then we get our crash here, okay? So depending on what you want to do, this gives us a few interesting things that we could do as far as building a framework. One, this fails early. It just fails at the first test, which might be what we want to do. You might not actually want to do that. You might actually want to, for instance, still have this run like in parallel, for instance. so that all of your tests run. So if you're building a dashboard or something, you can see like 10 of 15 tests passed or something of that. So then what you can actually do here is for each of these tests that are run, you could check if the assert is thrown and then, sort of handle that in a different way. So that's what those testing frameworks are going to do. So you can run through all of your tests. But if you do want to fail early, that's fine. And then you can see the actual, assertion that failed in this particular case here. Okay. And again, you can have some sort of format here for how you want to name the tests or, whatever that's going to be here. The trick is that you do need to make sure that there is some attribute here. If there isn't some attribute, maybe you just give it a default name or you fold it into some like common space here. Okay. So there's a little bit of work if you want to build on top of the unit test feature here. The purpose of this again is if you want to just do more reporting. But again, what's really neat here, I think, about the D language is, again, with the traits in this, we can build our own little framework here. Of course, that might not be your cup of tea. So as mentioned, though, if you just want something that works and does something in a multi-threaded fashion, just go ahead, head over to Dub, and unit threaded is one of the ones that I've used in the past here. I think dunit was very popular, and you can see that it's related to xunit and so on. And then there's a bunch of other different testing tools that folks have built. Alrighty, folks. So with that said, hopefully you enjoyed that lesson. I did earlier in the series where we're talking about unit test in the very first video where I introduced this, say that there'd be some cool metaprogramming stuff. So I wanted to show you that example and just how you can kind of play around with it and do some cool things. Again, D is a really powerful language, so just use your imagination if there's some feature that you don't have, and you can go ahead and build on top of it. I've enjoyed building on top of my own code for these types of tests here to build exactly what I want, and that's just a small taste of it. Alrighty, folks. Anyways, with that said, let me know if you've done something cool with metaprogramming and unit tests. I'd be very curious to hear your discussions below. And as always, thanks for your time and attention, and I'll look forward to seeing you in the next one.